The Atlanta Braves have a new play-by-play voice for the upcoming season, and Brandon Gaudin will talk about what he can bring to the table and also answer your Twitter questions on this mailbag episode of Lockedon Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on Twitter at shortstopball. Also, make sure you check out my website, shortstopball.com, where you can read some of my written content and see some of my other work as well. Make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. Send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the podcast. The majority of today's episode will be based on your feedback from Twitter, where you responded to the mailbag questions. And we're also, if you would, also subscribe to us on YouTube if you're new, up over 4,000 subscribers now. So we'll see if we can get to 5,000 by opening day. Might be a bit of a stretch, but certainly would love to see that happen as we grow this community. As always, thanks for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. We are posting content daily, 5 days a week now, as we gear up for the regular season. Before we get into this mailbag episode today, I want to remind you that it's brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. And where we're going to start today is the Braves have a new play-by-play voice on the TV side, and that is Brandon Gaudin. It was announced on Thursday that he will be the new play-by-play announcer for the Atlanta Braves on Valley Sports on the TV side of things. Honestly, never heard of him before this announcement today, but it sounds like he has a pretty impressive resume. He's been a play-by-play announcer for Fox Sports and the Big Ten Network over the last 7 years, where he's announced NFL and MLB games for Fox Sports. So pretty big deal there nationally. Been the play-by-play voice on Madden video games the last 7 years. I honestly don't know that I've played a Madden video game since the early 2000s. So I'm not familiar with his work there, but I know very popular game. Sure, some of you have played it. Called football, basketball, and baseball games for Georgia Tech from 2013 to 2016. Lives in the Atlanta area, obviously, and has some familiarity with Atlanta sports teams. Grew up watching the Braves. I think he was born in Indiana, but grew up watching the Braves as a lot of kids did around that time, as the Braves were on TBS, and says this is his dream job, which you love to hear, and that's great. Still pretty young. I think I saw where he's 39. Either way, I think he's still relatively young. Look, again, I know nothing about this guy. I know some of you have said that you're excited about him. Georgia Bulldog Will in the comment section said that he's excited for the new announcer. I don't know. I'll need to just hear him and listen to him a couple of times where I get a good feel. I went back and listened to some clips of him calling some football games. The voice sounds great. And that's always, a key part of being a good announcer. Obviously, my thing with whoever they were going to hire is I'm curious to learn about their knowledge of today's game. I think one of the biggest complaints with Chip Caray is the fact that I think a lot of people thought he complained about today's game a lot, and then he really wasn't up on all the analytics for today's game. So that to me is going to be the biggest thing with Brandon Gaudin is he up to date in analytics? Does he know how to properly apply analytics in today's game and how today's game is played? And hopefully can bring, some positive energy to today's game and some positive thoughts and educate the listener, which is what you really want out of your play-by-play announcer. So until I hear some of that and hear more of him, calling baseball games and hearing his knowledge of the sport of baseball in general, can't really give my opinion on him just because I've never really heard him call baseball games before that I can remember that I knew that it was him. I'm sure I've heard him a couple of times on Fox games, although to be honest, I don't listen to Fox games when they're on Fox all that much, which is sad because I loved growing up listening to the Saturday game on Fox. That was one of the highlights of the week. But Either way, I don't really have a huge opinion to give on Brandon Gaudin. I'm excited to see what he can do, as I tweeted out and tweeted him. Offered to see if he could come on the show. Would love to hear from him and get his thoughts and pick his brain about how he views today's game and whether or not he uses analytics. So would love to hear more about that from him. But either way, I'm just excited to have a new voice in the booth and see how that works out. All right, moving into Twitter questions for today. First one is going to be a little controversial. I hate to even answer it, but I'm a man of the people. He asked, I'm going to answer. Coach Gordon Bombay says, inspired by the Kevin Durant trade, if Ronald Acuna Jr. demanded a trade, what type of compensation would you expect in return? Again, I hate to even answer this question because I don't want anybody going out thinking that I'm saying Acuna is demanding a trade or that that's even been hinted at. It has not. I know there's been some false rumors on Twitter, but let's just say the Braves, whether Acuna demanded it or not, or the Braves just for some reason decided to trade him, what type of package would it take to get him? You look at what the Nationals got for Juan Soto last year. They got, 3 top 100 guys, CJ Abrams, James Wood, Robert Hassel. It would take at least that. I think you would need multiple top 100 prospects, including 2 of those guys who are probably within the top 20 in baseball, which may limit the teams who could even deal for Ronald Acuna Jr. Plus, the Braves are in a win now mode, so they would need somebody back that's proven at the major league level that could step in and try to recoup some of that value that would be lost if for some odd reason they were to trade Acuna. So it would take a lot. So for example, I looked at the Orioles farm system just because they have one of the best. For me, I would say I need Gunnar Henderson, who might be the best prospect in all of baseball. I need Grayson Rodriguez, who may be the best pitching prospect in all of baseball. I need another, top 100 guy or close to top 100 guy, maybe somebody like a Connor Norby. I need at least two other lottery ticket type prospects in the lower levels, who could potentially, who have a lot of upside. And I need a major league proven player, maybe somebody like an Anthony Santander, something like that. Even that, I would hesitate at making that trade, but I think that's the type of package that it would take. And I don't know what team would be willing to give that up. But I think that's the type of package it would take for Ronald Acuna Jr., who I believe, if healthy, could be a perennial MVP candidate. And just so we're clear, he's not demanding a trade. I think the Braves would be crazy to trade him. I don't want to trade him, but the question was asked, so I answered. Next one comes from Bear. Next 2 come from Bear. He says, who would be your top 5 cut candidates? So for me, it'd be Colby Allard, Michael Tonkin, Eli White would be my 3. I don't want to say easy cut candidates, but I just think Colby Allard's down on the depth chart, starting pitching wise. Michael Tonkin is out of options, and he's not going to make the bullpen unless there's some injuries anyway. I think Eli White is somewhat redundant in the outfield situation. Next 2 would be Seth Elledge, which I like Seth Elledge. I wouldn't want to cut him, and he has options, so I would love to be able to use him as minor league depth. And then I'd cut Ozuna. I've said that for a while now. I would cut him, but I know they're not going to, at least right now, because of the money that's owed. So I'd probably say Jackson Stevens, just because, again, I think he's redundant between him and Jesse Chavez. And I think Chavez perhaps has the leg up in that long relief battle. The other question from Bear, what do you need to see from our left fielders in the preseason? Who has the best chance of emerging to win the job? I just need to see good, consistent at bats and some solid defense. It's going to be really hard in spring training. They may get, 30, 40 at bats at most to really get a good idea of what these players can be. But they know, their job is on the line. So I just want to see good, consistent at bats from these left field candidates. Don't necessarily have to look at the results, but if every time up there, they're battling, they're putting the ball in play, making good, solid contact, that's really what I'll be looking for. And then I think it's going to be a platoon. So I don't think one person wins this job. I think Eddie Rosario is the clear favorite and has a leg up to be the left-handed part of this platoon. Perhaps Sam Hilliard pushes him for that. And I think Jordan Luplow probably has a leg up for the right-handed platoon option in left field. But I don't think there's going to be one person that just flat out comes into spring training and wins the job, everyday job. I think it's going to be a lot of different players in a platoon spot there. Jordan Griffey on that note in left field, of the potential left fielders not named Rosario, who has the most upside? I want to say Sam Hilliard. A lefty with power. He had a 156 WRC plus. It was just 37 games, but at AAA last year, he had a 140 WRC plus in 27 games at the MLB level in 2019. So a guy who has, flashed good stuff at times. He's shown the ability to mash at the minor league level, but just hasn't been able to translate that to the big league level. So the Braves can help him get something, just to click at the major league level. And maybe it's just, something mental. Hopefully the Braves, when they were scouting him before the move, hopefully they saw something in him they thought they could change. I think you can kind of say the same about Eli White, but I'm not as optimistic of him kind of breaking out. I don't expect any of these guys to break out, but again, the question was asked, so I'm answering, and I think it would probably be Sam Hilliard. But Eli White, he's had pretty good success at the minor league level as well. Going all the way back to 2018, he had a 132 WRC plus in 130 games at the AA level. And for me, if you can hit at the AA level, that shows you at least have the ability to play at the major league level. But again, like Hilliard, he's yet to really translate that into any big league success. And then also from Jordan Griffey, how many big league starts do you see Elder, Soroka, and Anderson each having by season's end? Assuming they all stay healthy and look good, I'd say Soroka probably gets 18 starts. I think if he gets to 20, I think that would be just incredible. But I got to imagine that his innings are capped at 100, 120 innings, maybe 130. The guy hasn't pitched in 2.5 years. So I can't imagine they're going to give him a heavy workload in 2023, even if he does look fantastic. So I got Soroka with 18, Ian Anderson with 12, and then I got Bryce Elder getting 10. Braves had 7 guys get 9 starts or more last year. So, there's going to be a lot of guys getting double-digit starts. All right, we got a lot of other questions to get to on today's podcast, talking about over-unders for home runs, a lot of other predictions coming up for this season, more stuff about the starting rotation as well. We'll get to all that here next. You're looking for a delicious treat, but don't want all the fat and calories, then you got to try Built Bar. Always telling you about Built Bar. We just got through the holiday seasons, and I know one of my goals is always to eat healthier. If you're like me, where you just want to eat healthier, but you don't want to compromise on the taste, and again, you got to try Built Bar. With Built Bar, healthy is actually tasty. They're so delicious, you won't think that you're eating a protein bar. They're perfect for a New Year's resolution if you still got years going. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. What's not to like about that? And they come in flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. They only have 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now, we've been telling you for a while how you can go to Built.com to order your Built Bars, and you can still do that. But now, if you're out at Walmart, you're out at the Sam's Club, you can go ahead and grab yourself a box of Built Bars while you're there. Get a 4-bar box at Walmart and a 13-bar box at Sam's Club. You want to go ahead and stack those Built Bars up. So whether you do it online, go to Walmart, go to Sam's Club, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars today. Getting into more of your questions, got a lot to get to. Going to try to move through some of these quickly so I can get to some of the questions, comments in the chat section. Drew forward with a couple of questions. First one, what minor league prospect has the best chance to make an impact with the Braves this season? I'm going to do a whole podcast about this later in spring training, but I don't see any minor league prospect coming up and having a huge impact for the Braves this year. But if I had to guess, I'd say it's most likely going to be a pitcher. And I'd say it's either Jared Schuster, Dylan Dodd, or Victor Vodnik. Now, the Braves bullpen is deep, but if Victor Vodnik reaches his potential, I mean, he could be a high leverage bullpen guy at some point in 2023. But again, the Braves bullpen is deep, so he may not be needed. I hope he's not needed, honestly. But if he just forces their hand, that command gets under control. I mean, he certainly has the look and feel of somebody who could be a high leverage reliever. Drew Ford also asked, over under 100 home runs for Acuna, Riley, and Olsen combined. I'd say that's pretty easy over for me. As I said the other day, I think all three of those guys have the ability to hit 40 home runs this year. Over under on 4 Braves hitting 20 plus home runs. I take the easy over on that as well. I just mentioned Acuna, Riley, and Olsen. I think easily get over 20 home runs. And then I think Harris, Ozzie have a great chance of getting over 20 home runs as well. And then over under 95 wins for the Braves. I'm going to go slightly over on this. And right now, if I'm predicting, I'm thinking 97 wins for the Braves this year. Look, winning 100 games is really, really difficult. So to ask them to do that in back-to-back years, not very realistic, but I do think it's going to take 95 wins or more to win the division. So I'm going to put the Braves at 97 wins. New York and Georgia Sports Highlights on Twitter says, what is your starting pitching rotation for the season? So if everybody's healthy and everybody's pitching the way that you would expect, I think it's Fried, Strider, Wright, Morton, and Soroka. Again, I've talked about it, and I talked about it on this episode already. I think Soroka's innings have to be limited this year, so that 5th starter spot's going to move around a lot. And look, the average team uses 11 starters in a given season, so there's going to be a lot of starters used, but everybody's healthy and pitching to the way they're capable of. That, to me, is the Braves' best rotation. APD on Twitter says, where will Ozzie bat this year? Hopefully further down in the lineup. I'm hopefully either 5th, 6th, or 7th. That's where I like Ozzie. I don't like him at the top of the order. If you want to move him higher against lefties, you can, but I've always been of the mindset that Ozzie needs to bat, middle down in the order in that 5th, 6th, or 7th spot, more likely the 5th or 6th spot. Cade Harrington, when do you think Matzek and Inoa will get transferred to the 60-day IL? Who would be your picks to fill those roster spots? So, interesting enough, Joel Sherman said that Thursday was the first day teams could use the 60-day IL. I didn't see a lot of teams doing that, and I thought that usually happened later in spring training, but I'm sure there are some teams out there that maybe have held back on some signings, that they're going to add some players to the 40-man roster. Hopefully the Braves go out and sign some better middle infield depth to add to the 40-man roster once they put Matzek in Inoa on the 60-day IL. But assuming they don't, and assuming they stay with the players on the roster now, I think Jesse Chavez or Jackson Stevens likely gets one of those spots. Maybe Kevin Pillar gets the other. Or depending on how the shortstop job shakes out, if Vaughn Grissom doesn't win it, then I think you could see Adrianza or Hechavarria get that other 40-man roster spot. Peterson on Twitter says, do you think the Braves will have another cold start or a hot one because of the WBC bounce-back seasons and players feeling more comfortable in their second year, Olsen and the rookies from last year? I don't think I'm not predicting they're going to have a hot start because of any of the things that you mentioned, but I will predict they won't have a cold start this year, and I'm looking for some wood to knock on. But last year I kind of give them a mulligan because of all the World Series celebration, losing Freddie Freeman. I know they're losing Dansby Swanson this year, but I just think the team is motivated. I know Ronald Acuna Jr. is motivated. He said it again on Thursday. He's 100. He feels 100%. He feels the best he has since the knee injury, and he himself said no more excuses. So I am really looking forward to Ronald Acuna Jr. coming out of the gates on fire this year. And I think the Braves, whether or not they come out on fire, I don't know, but I don't think they'll come out cold. I'll say that. I think they'll play good baseball throughout. They do have Washington, Cincinnati, Kansas City, and a 4-game series against Miami in the first month, so that should help. And they play San Diego twice in April, but it will be before Tatis comes back from suspension, so perhaps a little bit of a break there as well. Bellfire says, if someone gifted you 3 behind the dugout seats for any series this season, who would you most want to go see the Braves play? is a great question. And if anybody wants to gift me some behind the dugout seats, I will certainly take that. The Angels come July 31st through August 2nd. I am never going to miss an opportunity to see Mike Trout, who I think is the best player of all time, and certainly not going to miss a chance to see Trout and Ohtani. So that is by far my easiest pick there. And then I'm going to go with the Mets because I'm a sucker for, a good division race. And August 21st through August 23rd, that's the last time the Braves face the Mets at home this year. Because of the new schedule, Mets only come to Atlanta twice this year, I believe. But that's the last one. The last time they face the Mets is that August 21st through August 23rd series at Truist Park. So I would definitely want to be in attendance for that one. And then the other one is the Mariners, May 19th through 21st. You get to see a matchup between J-Rod and Acuna, two of, young superstars. J-Rod came on the scene last year and kind of became the big story of baseball. I think Acuna comes back healthy this year. He becomes the big story in baseball again. And that series in Seattle last year was just a lot of fun. I know the Braves ended up losing that series, but it was just a great series overall. I think the Mariners are a fun team. But that J-Rod Acuna matchup, I think, would be a really fun one to watch. I had 3 other series written down as well. I want to see the Padres when they come and all their stars that they have April 6th through 9th, the Astros April 21st through 23rd, the defending champs. Dodgers May 22nd through 24th. Anytime they come to town, especially now that Freddie Freeman's on the team, I think you got to try to make it out to see that. But Angels, Mets, Mariners, those would be my 3 series at home that I'd want to see. Jamar Baker, last year, Max finished runner-up in the NL Cy Young voting, and Kyle Wright finished 10th. How many Braves do you predict finishing this year in the top 10 of Cy Young, and which pitcher will finish the highest in the voting? Little surprise, Spencer Strider didn't get Cy Young votes last year. Perhaps it was because of innings that he didn't get any, but I think it'll be 2 again. I think the Braves will get 2 pitchers that get Cy Young votes. And as far as who finishes higher, that also leads to our last question here from Twitter. Chris Shaffey says, who finishes higher in the Cy Young Award voting this year, Strider or Fried? Or who are the 2 guys that I think will finish in the top 10 in Cy Young voting? And I think Strider finishes higher. You've been listening to the podcast. You know how high I am on Spencer Strider. And look, I think Max Fried is every bit as good of a pitcher as Spencer Strider is, but Strider just has that dominance factor to him that really plays up in the Cy Young voting. So if Strider does what he did last year, over 170 innings, I think he has a good chance to win the Cy Young. But even if he takes a small step back and just pitches more innings, he's going to finish in the top 10 of the NL Cy Young. And I expect Max Fried, if he's healthy and pitches a full season, that he will easily finish top 10 in the Cy Young. So I'd say both of those guys do. Let me know. You think a third one gets in? You think Kyle Wright gets votes again? Charlie Morton, bounce back season? Mike Soroka, who knows? The Braves have several solid candidates, but I do think Strider and Fried get the most votes. All right, next we'll get to the comments and questions from the chat section. Before we do that, I want to tell you about FanDuel. They're in the midway point of the NBA season over there if you like the basketball. So now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 deal. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drain. If you want to take the over on Braves wins on the upcoming season, I'm sure you can do that over there as well. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance to get a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. It's kind of wrapping things up here on today's podcast. Want to get to the chat section. Any questions that we have over there. Always appreciate you joining the show live when you have the opportunity. I appreciate you listening to the show whenever you get the opportunity. Georgia Bulldog Will, Jake, do you want Mark Aston to be the new PA announcer? He went to Auburn. I love what they're doing with the new PA announcer role and how they're letting the fans have a say in that. I don't really have a leader in the clubhouse right now, but certainly we can get some more War Eagles on the staff. Would love that. AG7 talking about Brandon Gaudin, I'm already forgetting the new announcer's name, said he's a genuine Braves fan based on his Twitter thread. Yes, he put a great thread out on Twitter. If you want to go follow him on Twitter, I believe it is just Brandon Gaudin. But yeah, he put a great thread out on Twitter talking about how much he loves the Braves and some of the history he had looking up to a lot of the Braves announcers. So very cool stuff there. And certainly glad, to have somebody who is that passionate about the franchise. Joe Mee, he's a Braves fan, and it seems people really like him. It'll be weird, but I'm sure he'll grow on us. And yeah, again, I'm just, I don't want to sound like I'm skeptical of the guy. I just need to hear it. I don't have a lot of experience with him. I am glad to hear that he's a big Braves fan. That's certainly a big plus, but how does that translate to him being a good broadcaster? We'll have to see. Marianne Smith, Jake, if Ozuna by the spring games doesn't do anything, then I don't know if he's ready. Look, I've said it a couple of times. My prediction is still, I think he's gone by the All-Star break. I think if he comes into the season, doesn't look good, as Marianne's saying, then I think maybe they give him 100, 150 at bats early in the year. Things don't look good. Cut him by the middle of the season. But I mean, if he comes in the spring and just looks out of shape, doesn't play well, I don't think I've seen a picture of it, which I know, hitters don't have to report quite yet, but I haven't seen a picture of him in spring training. I don't know. Maybe they do cut him before the season even starts, but I think he'll get a chance to at least prove himself one more time. Joseph recaps, I know nothing about this new play-by-play guy, me either, but I am excited to hear him. Georgia Bulldog Will says he was the announcer in the video game Madden, and Joseph recaps says he is a good play-by-play announcer as well, or is he a good play-by-play announcer? And Georgia Bulldog Will seems to be very, very receptive to Brandon Gaudin, so certainly great to hear. Look, again, I can't wait to listen to him. We'll get a chance in spring training to hear him as well. It'll be exciting just to have a new voice in there, but I don't know much about him. Joe Mee said, will Shoemake be at camp? It'll be interesting to compare his defense versus Vaughn this spring. I know he won't get nearly as many innings, but I like to see what he's got. He's on the 40-man roster, so yeah, he's going to be in camp. Again, I haven't seen anything about him yet. There's been next to nothing said about him all offseason, which I find pretty interesting, but I agree with you. I really want to see him in spring training and see what he looks like because, like I said, one of my biggest concerns is middle infield depth. So hopefully he can become part of that depth and be a positive part of that depth. So I think it's a big year for Braden Shoemake. Joseph recap, over or under Ronald Acuna Jr. and 30 or more home runs. I would easily take the over on that. Collier Smith, since you mentioned Gunnar Henderson earlier, does it hurt to see a guy like him ranked as the number one prospect when we took Braden Shoemake in the first round in 2019 over him? I know hindsight is 2020. Yeah, I mean, look, you can do that for just about every draft, especially when you're drafting, later. But yeah, I mean, you can do that in just about every draft. There's going to be guys you end up passing on. I didn't love the Braden Shoemake pick when they made it. I'm not going to sit here and say that Gunnar Henderson was on my radar at that point, but I never loved the Braden Shoemake pick for sure. Georgia Bulldog Will, is the breakout season for Acuna. I think he's broken out, but I think it's going to be a breakout season for him. Cade Shaver says 110 wins for the Braves. That would be certainly something. Georgia Bulldog Will says 95-67 prediction for the Braves. And he's also excited about Soroka's return. I think we all are. Just that day when, again, knock on wood. Yeah, Joe's recap. I'm knocking on my wooden desk behind me because don't want to mess it up. But that day that he returns to the big league mound, it's going to be a special one for sure. AG7, do you think Nick Anderson makes the opening day active roster over any other projected relievers like Yates, Santana, or Chavez? I think it would. I don't think Santana is going to be on that opening day roster. I think Yates definitely will be. So it would be that final spot, which right now I'd give to Jesse Chavez. But I think I said this on yesterday's podcast too. I think if it's down to those two guys, I think Nick Anderson is perhaps the better reliever, like in a high leverage situation if you had to use one. But I think especially early in the season, Jesse Chavez might be more valuable. Jack Davis, my 2023 prediction for the Braves is 162 with their fifth World Championship in franchise history as they beat the New York Yankees in the World Series to achieve that goal. Love that prediction there. Dirt Stick Nothing Else says, good evening, Jake. Got to be careful when I read some of these names I haven't noticed before. Says, do you think the reason Jose Iglesias hasn't been signed yet is because he wants too much money? I wouldn't mind having him for our lack of infield depth. I think the reason that Iglesias and Andrews haven't signed yet, they're looking for an everyday job, and they're still holding out hope that there'll be an everyday job. And I think they're going to take it into spring training, see if somebody gets hurt, somebody, maybe like Vaughn Grissom, doesn't win a job as expected, and then perhaps an opportunity comes up. Those guys are veterans in their career, so they've made some money. They can sit back and just wait and see if an opportunity opens up. But I'm sure they want a chance to play every day. But I'm with you. I would certainly love to have either of those guys for middle infield depth. Joseph Recap, do you think somebody is going to buy Bally Sports to save them money since they are going bankrupt? I honestly have no idea about that situation over there. I know Diamond Sports Agency, I think it is, who is the parent company, filed for bankruptcy, but that's all way above my head. So I'm not sure how all that's going to play out, but it'll be interesting to follow throughout the season. Kate Shavers, Brandon Gaudin did a play-by-play on a Grissom home run on Fox against the Astros. I'll have to go back and look that up then. I know he did a Braves game. So yeah, I'll see if I can go find that somewhere. Thomas Dew, is Sean Murphy the starting catcher for the Braves this season? He most certainly is, and I'd predict he probably gets 120 starts behind the plate, which doesn't leave much for Travis d'Arnaud, but I just got to think you traded for this guy. You really wanted him. You really wanted him because of what he brings defensively behind the plate. How are you not going to play that bullet as often as you can? AG7, DOB said Ozuna is the only notable player not at spring training. Thank you for that. I didn't see that anywhere. So that's very interesting and not necessarily a good sign. Alec Veal, will we see more Murphy, Travis, whoever's not catching at DH than Ozuna, even if he does make the roster? This is just a gut feeling thing, but I just feel if Ozuna is on the roster, they're going to play him at DH, and they're going to give him, like I said, 100, 150 at-bats to see what he can do, and then ultimately make a decision. I think he gets one more chance, and I think he's only getting that chance because of what the Braves owe him. So in my mind, if Ozuna's on the roster, he's going to play. But I do think ultimately Travis d'Arnaud, Sean Murphy end up getting several starts at the DH position. But like I just mentioned, for Murphy, I think his value comes when he's behind the plate defensively and the work that he does there. And that's where I want to see him the majority of the time. Joseph Recap, I think Simba is still a free agent. He is, and I've talked about Simba as well. Wouldn't mind getting him on a minor league deal. The Battery says, where can we get the Braves games on TV? Do we need a specific cable provider? Last year was confusing. So my understanding, and somebody can please correct me if I'm wrong on this, the only streaming service that provides Bally Sports is DirecTV Stream, which is what I use now. I loved YouTube TV, but they don't carry the Braves games, so I had to cut ways with them. I believe the only streaming provider that carries the Braves games is DirecTV Stream. Otherwise, you have to get a cable satellite subscription to get Bally Sports. I do also believe, I'm pretty sure they did this for the Hawks, and they're going to do it for the Braves as well. You can purchase a team only deal from Bally Sports to get the Braves, but I think it was fairly expensive, maybe like $20-something a month. But those are your options, and I'm sure somebody can give a better list of those options in the comment section below. But I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's for streaming service. It's DirecTV stream. Otherwise, you have to get satellite cable or Bally's specific team streaming service that they just started using. I know it was towards the beginning of the Hawks season. But again, I thought it was pretty expensive for what you get. All right. Sorry, we rambled on a little bit here at the end, but I appreciate so much all the questions that you provide me for these Mailbag podcasts. And spring training is getting going. We're going to have full squad workouts coming up here pretty soon. We're going to have spring training games a week from Saturday. And if you're a college baseball fan like I am, that season kicks off this weekend. So I'm going to be watching a ton of baseball. If you follow me on Twitter, you're going to see a lot of college baseball tweets this weekend, as I am super pumped up for that season to get underway. But that will do it for this episode of Lockedon Braves. Thank you, as always, for making Lockedon Braves your first listen of each and every day. Now go make your second listen to Lockedon MLB podcast, where MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and a unique perspective, talking about the biggest stories from around the league. Again, thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at @Lockedon_Braves. Follow me on Twitter at @ShortstopBall. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Lockedon Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.